What is the number one habit of the highly verbal? In other words, those people who are very articulate, who very easily can express their thoughts in a very cohesive, elegant, eloquent way. I studied communications in college. I went on to have a career in communications for 25 years as a television news anchor. And the one commonality I noticed amongst all the people that I was so impressed by their ability to converse, to communicate, to speak beautifully and eloquently, there was one commonality between all of these people. And many of them were in the news business, I'm going to be honest. Not all, but many of them were my coworkers. And I watched and I questioned how they had become so verbal and so good at relaying information. And I finally walked away with one thing: books. They were all readers. The highly verbal are almost always readers. They are people who spend their life curating knowledge, oftentimes through books. I know a lot of people these days go, well, I read articles online. Okay, it's probably better than nothing, but let's face it, as a journalist, I can sit down and crank out an article in no time. It doesn't take a lot of work or research on my part. In fact, most people in the news business crank out one or maybe more articles a day, right? A book's different. It takes some time to sit down and do more research. I'm not saying every book out there is the gospel, but I'm saying you're getting, I think, better knowledge in a book than you would an article. That's my opinion. And maybe you go, you know what? I'm not big on Plato. All right, I get it. One of my kids just finished up Ben-Hur for his summer reading. Okay. As a man thinketh, I think everybody should own this book personally. I mean, it's just brilliant. Maybe those aren't your style. Maybe you prefer to read. I'm not a fiction reader. I only read nonfiction. I very, very rarely read fiction, occasionally. But I think everyone can find your niche, what you like to read, things that you like to, that you're curious about, that you want to learn more about. And I think once you understand how powerful reading is for your ability to communicate, it takes on a whole new meaning. Because people who oftentimes are very good communicators are usually very curious people as well. And I'm thinking of two people in my head that I had the privilege of working with over the years. Actually, I'm going to say three people. And when you would have conversations with them, inevitably they would quote a book or an author or, you know, a big thinker like Plato or someone like that in their conversation, because there was an element of wisdom that they had curated through the years, and that was present in their ability to converse. I work with kids these days. I've been doing some coaching this summer for kids who are going to be interviewed for whether they're going to a new school or for sports or what have you. I've done some public speaking courses. I've done some one-on-one coaching with adults as well who wanted to learn more in this arena. And I always tell them to read. And I know kids in school are reading, and so they kind of have that built-in element, but it's important for adults as well. And parents lately have asked me this question over and over and over. They tell me they feel like their kids aren't as verbal today because we're constantly on cell phones and devices and what have you, and kids don't seem to communicate as much. I get that. I understand that. I'm a parent. Yes, that's a concern. But I think still reading is just so vitally important for kids and for adults alike. So that is just one of those core elements to being verbal lifelong. To stay curious, to continue to read, and to continue to add knowledge overall to who you are.